All right, flying to Seattle today, going on Norwegian Air. So here's a little bit of the trip. I had wondered what route we actually took, and when I saw that we were passing over northern or northeastern Iceland, that we must not have flown up over the Irish Sea here like I was kind of thinking we did. The route that I thought we would be following would be more like along this line from Gatwick on up this way, okay, because that would have been more like the Great Circle route, okay, but instead we flew over northern, like I said, northeast Iceland, and I took a picture of an island, this island right here, and trying to locate that island on this map here, and I first started looking off along these, I don't know, they call the Hebrides or something like that. But anyway, all these islands, I would have figured it would have been one of these. Turned out it was not. And finally zoomed in on it right around here, which meant that the route went more like this. Okay, we're flying right off that way. Right like that. And the island is actually located right in here. I'll just center that a little bit. That is it. That's Handa. Okay, see a little lake there, little bite right there with some islands and some islands. You can see how that matches up with the photograph. Anyway, that was it, Handa. So let's use Google Maps and pull back on Handa until we get to see the whole of the British Isles and the route that we seem to have taken all the way to Iceland. The island itself is small and disappears, except for the arrow there. And that's the route we seem to have taken. Now, we flew out over the water, obviously. Saw a lot of this. And missed Iceland entirely because of clouds that I didn't take any photographs of. But now we come towards Greenland. Look at this. Get some lovely views. Not so much clouds, hardly any. And look at these beautiful glaciers coming right down the fjords. Really something, isn't it? When I indicated earlier that we were flying from Gatwick here straight over to the middle of Greenland, that wasn't quite accurate. We passed over Handa, located right about there, but then we crossed over into Greenland near a glacier. It's quite obvious on the map. You saw from the photograph that puts it right about here. That was that glacier right there, coming out of that fjord. So that means we changed direction at some point between Gatwick and there, and I took it somewhere in the vicinity of the Faroe Islands, simply because I did see the Faroe Islands out in the distance at one point. It didn't take a photograph of it, unfortunately, and so this is where we changed direction. So we flew right over the top edge of, actually it's the northeast edge of Iceland. Now this is the Google Earth view of this glacier in the photograph in Greenland, and our track, our flying track, our apparent flying track. I can't be absolutely certain that's the one we were taking. Anyway, this to show you in relation to the rest of Greenland what this looks like. Let me zoom out until we can see the whole thing. Okay, you'll note that big, huge bay over there, and you can see in the distance in the photograph that big fjord. You can see it in the distance. So we're going to go ahead and move along as we were flying west, and we see more and more of this fjord action going on, and eventually it begins to get more and more snow covered and ice covered after we get past this big huge bay. Okay, and this is absolutely beautiful to watch out of the window, and you know, photographs don't do it justice. There's some icebergs, a nice valley with an ice flow. Another one, look at that. Look like ice is flowing like a river. So I took a bit of a video clip here as we're flying westwards along that fjord. And as you can see, the buildup of snow is increasing as we move along westwards. In a bit, I'm going to show you a bit of that sound that is still above where we're looking at, looking up further. But anyway, it does go up gradually, and eventually this becomes quite featureless, as I'll show you in a bit. Well, what you see in the distance there is Scoresby Sound. It's a large fjord system. It's huge. It's one of the largest in the world. It has lots of water in it and such like. It's named after the English explorer William Scoresby, who mapped the area in big detail in 1822. Except for a tiny settlement on the northern side of the mouth of the Scoresby Sound with a 2010 population of 469, there are no humans anywhere in sight here. I'm not going to attempt to pronounce the name of the settlement, which means big house dwellers in the East Greenlandic tongue. One little formation that I found interesting was found here. And if you look at this photograph, up into the upper right is the Scoresby Sound, and down to the lower left is the island I'm talking about. This one here, it looks like a bit of a triangle. And since I couldn't find its real name, I just called it Triangle Island. And there was another little island right south of it, which I don't know what to call, but there it is. Looked really nice. And that's a satellite photograph of it. And as we flew further along, it's kind of gone off to the side, out of sight. But that's where it is in relation to the rest of Greenland, right there. Now, as we flew farther and farther west, things just got kind of still interesting, because still a lot of nice landforms here off the Scoresby Sound. But then it began to get more and more ice and flat ice. You know, you can just see it. Look at here, it's just mainly ice. Here's a little bit down there. I took a closer look at it. That's I don't know what kind of a formation that is, but probably some sort of ice drift. I don't know if that's a good term for it. So after leaving the eastern portions of Greenland, we just flew about 500 miles worth of this featureless terrain, very uninteresting, roughly about an hour. And then we started hitting into the western parts where it began to get interesting again. For example, here in a somewhat featureless area, we have an apparent flow of ice. So it's not quite as featureless as it was before. This is quite interesting, very slow, of course, and then we begin to see that the western part of Greenland is getting close. And here we are. Now, there's something I thought might be interesting to point out. Not being a geologist or anything, I noticed a profound difference between eastern and western Greenland. Note here, this is western Greenland, nice and amorphous, kind of like lumps, okay? But here in eastern Greenland, it's more layered, like the different kind of geology going on. Not being a geologist, I can't say exactly what the difference is technically, but it looks like western Greenland is more volcanic, whereas eastern seems to be more sedimentary. That's why the layers are there. Anyway, just an observation. Though it's very possible I'm off base on that observation. So here we are, just continuing on western Greenland, coming to the end of it and heading out into the water between Greenland and Canada. And that's an interesting island right there. Lots of lakes, rather worn down and all that. And here is a fine iceberg. Don't know if those two are together or separate. Another one with an interesting valley down the middle of it. And then out into the open water, and cloud cover comes on. And of course, aside from the odd iceberg, nothing but clouds.